Hello and welcome to Sports Fan Entertainment, here to discuss Brian Callahan in his first press conference as new Tennessee Titans head coach. Again, I was a fan of this hire. If you haven't watched my video and my thoughts on the hire, go ahead and check that out. I also made a video covering who I think will be potential offensive coordinators, and tomorrow, maybe Saturday, but probably tomorrow, we'll discuss defensive coordinators. I kind of want to space out the content because I made a video Monday, Tuesday. Technically, I think it was, Tuesday? Wednesday, Thursday now. So should I make another one Friday? I don't know. I haven't been getting less views, so maybe I'll just go ahead and drop it tomorrow, depending on how this one does. But we have Brian Callahan's first press conference. And as I expected, he was very, very impressive, and this is very, very exciting times in Tennessee. Now, you can only take introductory press conferences with a grain of salt. Usually all of them are impressive. It's rare that you come away from an introductory press conference for a head coach and feel like, uh-oh. And one of the times I felt that way, and a lot of people did, was actually Nick Sirianni, whenever he took over for the Eagles. Now, Sirianni, this past season, in particular the last 6-7 games, you don't love, and he got close to being fired now, but with that said, I mean, he's had a winning team every single year since he's been hired. And if he got fired, it's more so due to their collapse late and some of the drama in the locker room than his overall job performance. It's still been way above average. He's gone to the Super Bowl in his second year, for God's sake. So the Sirianni press conference, I did not love. It was very awkward. It was very weird. A lot of the media made a big deal about it. And it ended up being pretty damn good so far. We'll see about next year because he's already going to be on the hot seat next year. But it started off great. Okay, at the very least, he started off great. So it's nice to see, and we're going to get into some notes here, some things that I took note of that we should discuss. So one of the more important things was what I first heard from Amy Adams-Strunk when she was introducing him. And it was the process in which that they went through for the official 9 interviews that they went through. And you heard a little bit about what the interview was like and why they liked Brian Callahan so much. You know, it was beyond whenever they were talking about, his, resume, his qualifications, his understanding of the team. They actually sat down and went through tape and went through philosophy and went through, what they see on the field and what what they envision, hopefully, what this offense would look like. And they both were on the same page. Huge, 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 huge. The fact that they went through film together and they were able to dissect it and they were both on the same page, and that's what they were most impressed by, that gives me a lot of confidence. Because, I mean, usually, yes, there is tape involved in most of these interviews, and that is necessary, but that's a huge component for me. I want you to not only talk about it in the high level, I need low level. And that goes for a lot of things, even beyond football. But I need low level. I need to know that you really know what you're talking about in the specifics. And then you combine that with his overall maturity that I saw, his command. Well, not being like, I'm not saying that this guy is like some, domineering presence, but I feel like he's very put together. He's very mature. And he seems very ready. Because one of the things I did not like about Ben Johnson or Bobby Slowick, they're young. They've been coordinators, Slowick for 1 year, Johnson for 2. Whenever I've seen them in press conference, they look like they're new to it. They look like they're a year or two into being, and the press conference is only a press conference. At the end of the day, you have to, lead the team, and it's the locker room speeches and your presence in the locker room that matters more than just the media. But you can get a sense for your personality. And this seems like a guy that's been a coordinator for 5 years. This is a guy that's very comfortable talking to the media and is ready to be the face of this football team outside of the players, right? Because number one, it will be the players mostly, unless if your name is maybe like Pete Carroll, and even then, a lot of times the Seahawks were. I mean, it's hard for an NFL coach to be bigger than the players. In college, yeah, Saban's bigger than the program. But in the NFL, it's going to be the players, but still, you want to have that figurehead still as your head coach, that to be that big presence, and I saw that from him. I was very impressed. And he's very well-spoken, very commanding, and he only has like 3 or 4 years on Slowick and Johnson, but I think it'll make a little bit of a difference, particularly when it comes to the coordinator experience. He just seems more ready to me. And it seems like, again, like he's been having I think 2 years or at least a year of going through the interviewing process, so he's very familiar with that. And not only going through the interview process, but think about it. If you're going through the process, you're already having these conversations with Zach Taylor. You're already having the conversations with your father, Bill Callahan, in terms of being a head coach. He's already been aspiring to being a head coach. It's not like something like Slowick. Slowick, maybe in the back of his mind, he's like 2 years ago, right? Whenever he was the pass game coordinator for the 49ers. He's probably thinking in the back of his head, man, I'd love to be an NFL coach one day. And if you were to ask him, honestly, and I don't know him personally, but let's say you were to ask him, and he'd be like, yeah, I can see myself there in 4 or 5 years. And then all of a sudden, 2 years later, he's a head coach. And it's kind of quick, as opposed to Callahan as that time. And I think that kind of matters. Now, is there evidence to that? I haven't run the numbers on that. I'm speaking purely from my opinion. Like McVay was young, but McVay had been coordinator for the Redskins for 3 years. You see, what are the other like really good, I guess, comparisons you get? Reed was, I mean, this is back in the old day, but Reed had been coordinator for a while. Bill Belichick had been coordinator for a while. John Harbaugh was special teams coordinator for a while. Kyle Shanahan was offensive coordinator twice, one in Atlanta, one in Cleveland. I like guys with a little more experience. I know that, it's kind of the wave now. Like Mike McDaniel had like 1 or 2 years. I mean, he's done all right. McDermott was coordinator for like 3 or something like that. Let's see other successful coaches that we should mention. I like experience, guys. I think it matters. I think a 1 year, 2 year offensive coordinator, it's a risk. I've seen guys like this flame out because they're just not ready yet. Well, Callahan looks ready to me. So some other notes to mention. So Callahan will indeed be the play caller. So for anyone that was concerned about that, there you go. I don't think it matters, but I know for some people this gives you comfort. Okay. I just want there to be a good play caller. And then the theory is that, we want him to be the play caller because if our offensive coordinator is the play caller and if we're good, then he's going to leave. Well, we'll deal with that when we get there. I just want someone to be good, okay? Let's just get someone good first, whether it's him or the offensive coordinator. Let's just get good. How about we get a good play caller for the first time since really Arthur Smith? Tim Kelly was fine at times, but not good. We need someone that's actually, okay, this guy's above average. And it looks like we're going to have that here in Callahan. So we'll be calling the plays, which then if you go back to my offensive coordinator video, you can watch that again and get an idea of guys that maybe necessarily are trying to, or actually like maybe not play callers now, are trying to rise up in the ranks, might be assistant head coaches. I talked about the Eagles running backs coach that he's worked before. I talked about the Texans wide receiver coach Ben McDaniel's brother Josh McDaniels, a guy that might be looking to elevate to being an offensive coordinator. He's now another name to look for that I mentioned earlier. Thomas Brown, who's going to be looking for a job. We mentioned him as well. Go watch the video. I mentioned all the names there. So that opens up that possibility that I mentioned in that video. A huge emphasis on putting offensive players in the best position to succeed, while yet, and I'm really emphasizing the passing game on that. And at the same time, being physical in the run game. Love hearing that. Okay, that's exactly what you want to hear. We want to be physical in the run game. We want to be a little more finesse in terms of being more of a passing attack, in terms of hitting these wide receivers, in terms of relying on our passing attack to move the ball consistently down the field. Absolutely, 100%, I'm with you there. Because God knows, throughout the history of the Tennessee Titans, we haven't had that. I mean, have we had a 4,000-yard passer yet? Did Tannehill ever do it? I think he did. I think Tannehill did that like 1 year, but that's it. and then Hasselbeck got like 3,500 ones. But outside of that, it's just we haven't had a prolific passing game in Tennessee at all. And yeah, he did it in that 2020 season. But outside of that, we haven't had any sort of prolific passing offense in Tennessee, so we'll have the ability. Oh, in fact, no, he didn't. I thought he got 3,800. Ooh, he got close. Wow, that's tragic. Oh, geez. So, okay, hopefully, we're able to have that under Brian Callahan whenever he comes in and starts, doing those things. But he's huge on first of all, getting talented guys. So now we're actually going to have talent at wide receiver. And then two, putting him in the best position to succeed, One of the things about the Bengals, they will throw Jamar Chase the ball. I mean, they have no problem giving him 12, 13, 14, 15 targets in a game and him getting over 250 yards. If he's talented enough to do it, we'll do it. And there's pros and cons to that, but, I mean, if it works, I'm down. God knows what we've been doing hasn't been working. All right, so he shut down the talks of his dad just because his dad is currently under contract for the Cleveland Browns. And, I mean, that's a good point, right? I mean, they would have to literally release him from his contract or trade. Everyone was talking about, well, just pick him up or, request to interview him, which I guess we can do. And then it would be a lateral move, which I guess is legal. But I mean, they'd have to approve that just to be nice, and we'll see if they do that. In terms of the defense, 3-4-4-3, again, as he said, it really doesn't matter, and he's right. There's multiple personnel on defense nowadays. You have some 4-3 looks, you have some 3-4 looks, you have five down linemen sometimes. It really doesn't matter what the basis anymore. We're not in 2008. And then that was mostly it. Ray Carthon also said that we're going to call him Callie, and I'm like, oh, God, okay. I don't know about that nickname, but I guess I'll get used to that. And then we're also interviewing, he didn't mention this, but this has been mentioned outside of the news or outside of this press conference, but in the news today, that we are interviewing Denard Wilson, who is the defensive backs coach for the Baltimore Ravens. Not too much that I know about him. He is a former NFL player himself, but I mean, you look at how the Ravens have played this year, and particularly the defensive backs. I mean, I have absolutely no problem with that. It's his first year doing that. Last year, he was defensive backs coach for the Eagles. In fact, the last 2 years. And then he was also a pass game coordinator for the Eagles last year. Before that, being pass game coordinator and defensive backs coach for the Jets in 2019 and 2020. Defensive backs coach for the Jets 2017 through 2018. And then defensive back coach for the Rams 2015 to 2016. So a lot of years as defensive back coach. Off the top of my head here, Jets 2017 to 2020. They were decent. And then Eagles, not so much. Those 2 years, the Eagles' defensive backs weren't great. But I mean, there's a huge difference between just being a positional coach and being a coordinator. So considering the fact that this year the Ravens' defensive backs have been so good, I get why he's getting an interview. I can't sit here and tell you, oh, it's a slam dunk or it's a disaster. I can't tell you just based off this resume. I see some hit years here for the defensive backs, and I see some miss years here for his defensive back. So it's just something that we'll have to wait and see. So that's it for Denard Wilson. But I was very impressed, guys. I was very impressed by this first press conference, Brian Callahan, and seeing what he is up to. I also wanted to quickly touch on the Wesley Woodyard interview. So Wesley Woodyard was on 3HL 104.5 The Zone, and he was talking about Mike Vrabel and his experiences with Mike Vrabel and some of the things that he liked and disliked about Mike Vrabel. And it's some of the things that we've been hearing that, particularly he had some anecdotes which were very interesting. He had an anecdote that before the AFC Championship game against the Kansas City Chiefs in 2019, or technically in 2020, but the 2019 season, Dean Pease was having a heartfelt moment with the defense. And then Mike Vrabel just kind of came in and kind of interrupted it, and then kind of changed the game plan for that game, which was very odd and just disrupted the whole flow of that game, to his opinion. Vrabel instituted a weird rule where, there was no more of the players' kids allowed in the locker room, but he also allowed his kids there, his own kids, but no one else's, which was strange. I think that has changed now, though. Now I don't know what the rule is, but now I know, like, either you can't have your kids or no one can, including him. But for a while, there was some nepotism for his kids and his alone, which is very fascinating. What else did he mention? He also mentioned that, they felt that if they won the Super Bowl or if they ever were really successful, that it'd be Vrabel's identity of the team instead of the individual players. It's interesting. He also mentioned that, something about like how, some of the players that might have left felt some type of way about him. And when I think about the players that have quote unquote left, so A.J. Brown got traded. So let's not include A.J. Brown in that discussion. Josh Reynolds is someone that legitimately has to be cut. Okay, or that's legitimate. So Josh Reynolds. Okay, now he's made some plays for Detroit. Let's not go crazy here. He's still Josh Reynolds. Not nearly what he was for the Rams still. So let's not go crazy here. But, okay, Josh Reynolds. Adoree Jackson has mentioned some things. David Long, they just didn't get along, him and David Long, I think. And, the whole soft tissue thing. You also had Jack Conklin hasn't really said anything, but that's one of the free agents that we had that we lost that really we've missed ever since. And Nate Davis really hasn't said anything, but those are the names that are people that have left. But I mean, it's one of those things where, while I agree that Vrabel could be a little much and I don't think that caused the downfall, though, in terms of our team. Because I'm not missing any of those guys. Adoree Jackson is fine. He's a little better, maybe than Christian Fulton, but he's still having injury problems, just like Christian Fulton. So it doesn't even matter. Jack Conklin I miss, but Jack Conklin hasn't said anything about Vrabel, so I don't know. Nate Davis we miss. He hasn't said anything as far as we know. So the only people that have said things that we know, Josh Reynolds, who, I mean, yeah, but if he was here, he wouldn't do more than Chris Moore, so I don't care. And then David Long. Okay, David Long would have been nice because this year actually was really good against the run in Miami. That one, and he's cheap. I mean, Jesus Christ, he's cheap. So I didn't know why we didn't re-sign him in the first place. How many more games did we win with David Long? One, maybe. So let's not go crazy here and saying like, oh, but I will say this: Vrabel's whole act, it just got tiring. So I will tell you this: I do believe these players have been kind of gotten tired of it, and they're not really buying it anymore, which is why. And this is one of the reasons why I argue why we fired him. You still look at like a Pete Carroll, right? And the Seahawks, who last year, right? Look at Drew Lock and Geno Smith are going to lead this team. There's so many rookies. This roster is depleted of talent. There's no way that this team is going to compete for the playoffs. Hell, they're going to be competing for the number one pick. What did Pete Carroll do? He got him in the damn playoffs. Mike Tomlin last year, Kenny Pickett's a rookie. He did, oh my God, they have all these, new changing talent. Ben Roethlisberger's gone. There's no way the Steelers are going to continue to have at least a winning record. This is finally going to be the year. The Steelers have a losing record. He still got them to having a winning record last year. And then this year in the playoffs. Still, despite Kenny Pickett and Mason Rudolph and all that, he still does that. That's what coaches do if your act is not getting to... Because they have acts. Tomlin and Carroll, they're a lot. Tomlin demands a lot. Carroll demands a lot. But despite them demanding a lot, they still keep themselves mostly good with the players to get the most out of them. Okay? Now, some people have talked trash about Pete Carroll after having left. This includes Richard Sherman and some of the past Legion of Boom. Okay? Still, Pete Carroll every year has had a winning season except for 2 years ago when he had Russell Wilson and he was like hurt for half the year. And then I think maybe the year after that they went 8-9. But still, he still has been. In fact, did they go 8-9 or 7-10? But something like that. He's been largely successful. Vrabel is not a Pete Carroll or Mike Tomlin to me, which is why I'm fine letting him go because even those two haven't won a Super Bowl in 10 years. Even those two haven't won a Super Bowl in 10 years. So here comes Brian Callahan. And we're going to see what Brian Callahan does. Also, someone in the chat mentioned Jayon Brown. I'm not crying about Jayon Brown right now. So it's just a thing where, again, I'm not hating on Vrabel. It looks like he may not get hired. He's either going to be a Seahawk or he's going to be nothing this year. And then next year, he's going to get hired. There's no way he's not going to get hired next year. Next year, someone's going to hire him, and we'll see how he does. I just think it's going to be way closer to Ron Rivera than it's going to be Bill Belichick in terms of their second stints as head coach. That's what I believe. So anyway, that's going to do it for me. And my thoughts on Brian Callahan in his introductory press conference. What are your thoughts? Comment down below. I want to know. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like, comment, and most importantly, to subscribe. I'm out. See you all later.